Hey everybody, welcome back to another Face Reactions. I'm Griffin, that's Theta, and we're here to I was about to say watch, but we're gonna read some Vanadis arts. We are on chapter 2. Theta, why don't we go over real quick just what's been happening? How would you summarize this?
Well, as a visual medium, I would say you can watch it.
Well, you're watching it here and now. But I suppose the easiest way to summarize it is last time they stopped at a truck stop, bought too much coffee, and then got found out and went on the lam.
Last time on Vanadis Art. It has the
Anything else you'd like
name.
to
Well,
add
I
to
mean, it
that?
has the same. It has the name of a soap opera. So I mean,
All my Vanadis hearts.
as the Vanadis Art turns.
So, anything we want to cover before we get started then?
No, I think most of my notes take into account and/or mention previous events from other chapters. So I don't think in Vanadis Art we really have to do a recap.
Alright, fair enough. So let's just go ahead and get started. Let's start with page 1 here, where we have 3 suits coming in on their location.
Yep.
Let's see.
First
What do we have?
page, we see our main characters being chased by the same mobile suits as the roleplay security forces from last chapter. We are shown that they not only split up into multiple groups, but are also trying to capture the Gundam if possible. The map in the center panel lists a number of boroughs, spelled in the donkey fashion, making me at first wonder if it's a translation thing. But later on, we see they aren't traveling through a town or a city, so it's not a mistranslation of that type of borough. So my best guess, based on our assumption that they were near the Californian coast last time,
Mm-hmm.
is that they are somewhere around Nevada and the Mojave Desert, which is a long range of locations named Burrow Canyon, Burrow Springs, Burrow Schmidt Tunnel, Burrow Schmidt Lookout.
That checks out. Hey, we now know exactly where on Earth they are. That's amazing.
Well, at the very least, we know the path that they're taking.
Right. So, hey, that's sometimes kind of rare when we have global shows and it is very easy to tell precisely what street they are on or something.
Well, again, this is all also just like guesswork, right? They could have
Mhm.
been somewhere in like Africa on the coast, and there's a bunch of places in Africa named Burrow. They could be somewhere on the let's say Iberian Peninsula. That's the wrong one. I don't know what the shape or the formation is called in Europe that includes Spain and
Mhm.
Portugal, but they could
They
have
they
been
could,
off of that coast. I think Burrow is a Spanish word, isn't it?
yeah, it is. They could have been at the Parthenon in Athens in Georgia.
I mean, but the point being is that they could actually be in Spain. Probably, there's probably places in Spain named Burrow, and we could put these things together. But
That's pretty fair. It theoretically could be possible. I don't know enough about Spain's geography to say is there a large desert area?
well, I looked this up when I was trying to guess because we guessed before California, so I
Mm-hmm.
tried to guess the areas nearest to California that Burrow dams. That's where the Nevada Mojave Desert thing came up. So, from our American point of view, we guessed California to Nevada. If you are a European watcher and you happen to also read this and be anal enough to look it up, and you have a Burrow Spanish area or whatever, I mean, throw out your guesses, I guess, is what I'm saying.
Still, this is a very good Gundam action scene for a page. We have plenty of movement and action to it, and then we could go ahead and go to the next one, where we have action more suited to Vanadis hearts.
Yeah, next page we see that Kyu has moved from massive punches to massive kicks, saying a line from Terminator 2, while knocking back his security mobile suit so hard that it leaves skid marks in the ground as it flies away.
That is perhaps the most anime thing we've seen so far, and well, I guess this is also the most childish thing I've seen Kyo do as well. I could literally see myself doing this at probably about the same age. Just give me that one liner. I need it. Feed it into my veins.
Alright, next page. Over the, oh, sorry. Sometimes I get confused. I thought over the comas. Like, what coma? What am I talking about?
But yeah, on the next page we have Vilda.
Comms, Vilda asks where Kyu picked up. I know you're trying to rush. Picked up such a phrase, and he confirms that it was from a movie, making Terminator 2 canon, to which Mercury. Vilda chastises Kyu for wasting time in the middle of a fight while also regretting her own choice in movie lineup for Kyu to have watched. Kyu then begs for attention while setting up an attack.
Yeah. Still, Kyu's still trying to be way too cool. But also, I wonder what other movies Vilda has around. Those are clearly just her movies, right? She's seen Terminator 2. She's a Terminator 2 fan.
Well, there's a conversation that she has later on that I think might allude to what movies she picks and why.
When we talked about Wish for Mercury, I said put a pin on something. We will be coming to that here.
Alright, in the next panel, he goes back to using his giant fist, blowing another security mobile suit out of commission.
Literally getting rotated.
Yep. He then describes the fact that these suits keep all their sensor equipment in their heads. Mm-hmm. He can then target them without killing anyone.
Yeah, that's like very classic Gundam mobile suit design, right? Everything, all the sensors and technology are in the head. Pilot is in the chest where they're well protected. Well, which makes a lot of sense.
Also, the easier place to hit, because everyone's trying to hit center mass. So, any modern-day soldier would kill you.
Yeah, harder to hit the tiny head up top. It's also like why all the Zakus have like the bar visor, right?
Yep. Alright, page 5 creates some questions in my mind. Vilda berates Kyu for treating combat like a game, but at the same time suggests that Kyu received training in combat. Sorry, my throat. But at the same time suggests that Kyu received training in combat from someone else. Kyu also suggests that moving a lot in the GU should be good for their heart, which calls back many conversations from the past, which seemed metaphorical but now seem literal in context. Vilda suggests that Kyu doesn't need to fight to gain experience, and that it should be avoided as much as possible.
I do love how this, even though like we're still getting like plenty of like drama here in this comic, there's so much like comedy just like put in, like seeing like the mobile suit here just like putting on this like comedic pose, like it feels so happy, especially when they're literally talking about like the amount of cybernetic surgery going on here, the amount that's in play, right?
Well, because it suggests that Kyu would be better fit for G Gundam, where there's one-for-one motion stuff.
Yeah.
But also, again, panel 2 here also suggests that Kyu was taught combat in a mobile suit somewhere. And specifically not by Vilda.
Yeah, right back to the whole Ox conspiracy stuff, right?
I have no idea. Not when it comes to these two.
So, checking out the next page.
The next page continues the discussion a bit more, with Vilda repeating essentially what she said in the last chapter, that if Kyu would stop rushing out to attack people, they could sneak away without fighting. At the same time, she is considering the fact that they need intel and cannot just keep fleeing all the time. Then the pilots of the mobile suits crest the hill, and Vilda gun-katas them all with a taser gun.
Go ahead.
The way the ground was drawn in the panel, I thought it was blood splatters, and she was actually just lying to Kyu about them being stunned. But what she says in the next few panels doesn't make sense unless she's being honest.
Yeah, I do believe it. I think it's a bit of a cop-out, but I mean, I totally believe it. But also, seeing Vilda being as action girl as possible is really cool. I didn't expect that she would be able to do it.
Well, I mean, the previous chapter, we saw her dealing with the fallout of the Vanadis incident, vis-a-vis someone sacrificing their life to save her, and her wandering through the halls of blood splatter-filled Vanadis Institute. So
and of course, on the next,
entirely possible, given that and her speeches to Kyu about not killing people, that just being good with a taser would be a thing that she's good with.
She could also be cybernetically enhanced too, was like a running thought we had, just because of like the eyes and stuff that we've had a discussion about. So that she can like just gun kata people, just like, yeah, no, sure, fine.
Well, I'm actually more of the mind now after seeing a lot more stuff that that's just an artistic choice, and it's not actually Spacians versus Earthians thing.
Right, I think we're going to get a moment up ahead that'll like further define that. Like, yeah, no, that's just artistic. But on the next page, we do, of course, have them trying to have care and concern for these pilots. You know, don't let them get dehydrated, put them out in the shade and everything.
Yeah.
They're being gentle, careful, trying to save lives. Like, yeah, this makes sense. They're not bad people. They aren't interested in violence, aside from being cool, obviously.
And we see that the cargo truck is parked off the side of the road, and the wrecks of at least 9 mobile suits dot the area around the road.
Yeah, so they took care of all of them.
If she really had killed them all, it doesn't seem likely that she'd have Q do that. Sorry, I have these pre-written out things, so when you say something that's like in the middle of my text, I'm like, let me read through here and figure out what you didn't say.
Yeah, you got yourself a script and you're just like, you don't know how to improvise. It's all good.
I don't know how to improvise, I just don't know how to mention the things that tie into what you say after.
Right. We do have the next page where we see the drone swarm and thumbs up emojis. It's so cute. And Kyu just going around doing all the chores.
Thumbs up emojis. Oh, sorry. You said a drone swarm, so I'm looking at the first panel. I'm like, they're not doing any. You mean at the other one, yeah.
Yeah, it's the second one where we get like a little bit more detail. It's like they have the same faces. Like they love putting faces on the robots in this universe. It's cute.
We also see Q doing chores along the length of the truck, doing checks on a vehicle we haven't seen before. Didn't look like any part of the GU I could recognize. Plus, it has the air intake thing you typically only see on fighter jets. Otherwise, he's got a list of stuff, the likes of which we've only seen Season 1 Suletta have.
Yeah. We got vegetables and excitement, and Q. We started off like getting introduced to Q, like cooking and like having fun doing that. So yeah, no, it makes sense. He's excited to get it started again.
Yeah, they take care of Vilda. I've kind of put the next 2 pages together in my notes.
10, 11.
Well, sorry. I've also have them labeled 1 below the number they actually are, so my 9 is their 10.
Fair enough.
Because I
enough.
don't count the first page. This page raises more questions in my mind. What if Vilda is Sophie's mom? We see that Vilda keeps a stuffed animal collection and buys more of them along the way. She says she gives them names and roles, just like Sophie did. She then goes off on what I feel is a bit of a tangent. Instead of explaining why she has them, she starts explaining how such things are good for emotional education and how he could use various things to learn how to interact with others and understand roles. This causes her to launch into an explanation of the Gunda tech and how it allows people to form connections with objects and how this serves as a sort of therapy to recognize different sorts of objects while being able to maintain different thoughts about them. At least that's how I read it.
Yeah, I just wanted you to complete that thought because it is very complicated. I love the Dizzy Kiyu at the end. That's about how I feel to it. To like back up real quick first, yeah, we have Sophie like was also doing the stuffed animal thing, and I can't help but imagine that it's for exactly the same purpose, or maybe like they all like are diving in from like the same training or something. Like they're reading the same manual here.
Yeah,
Sophie got the stuffed animals because whoever was handling her said like she needs the stuffed animals.
Yeah, if not Sophie's mom, Sophie's therapist, something. They're both on
and then
Earth.
Noria, of course, is drawing.
Age. Yeah.
It all sort of is tying together a tiny bit, that there are little bits that are the same and for reasons that start to become more obvious. But I do enjoy trying to like understand how everything Vilda here is like tying together. It does start off with just like emotional psychology, which like, yeah, no, you want kids to like interact with things, learn roles, learn how to socialize, and Kiyu is completely without anyone else except Vilda, the parent figure, so that's gonna be very hard.
Well, I guess my my extra little read on this is that having never lost a limb, I assume that when you get some sort of prosthetic or something, there might be some sort of therapeutic thing that you have to go through to be getting used to having an artificial thing attached to your body. So in a world of the far future where gun tech exists, that having artificial limbs and something so much inside of you, or even an artificial brain, as we might read later, that there might be even more intricate therapies required to deal
Right.
with.
And I guess that'd be like the second part of the dialogue, which kind of like she just tangents and keeps ranting really when it comes down to it. But to like cover sort of the thing you were talking about, when humans like operate tools and machines, like we don't like think about those as separate entities. We do start to think of those as like part of ourselves, our bodies, and us doing a thing. It's not like I move my hands and to move the steering wheel to make the car move left. It's like I am turning left. That's like how you internalize it. For tool users, we do that all the time. We extend our body like very naturally. And when it comes to things like losing limbs and stuff, if you lose one, you sometimes like have phantom limb experiences. You still think it's supposed to be there. You still identify that that should be happening. You've extended your mind out to a thing that doesn't exist anymore. So like getting it back, like you could sometimes take somebody who's lost an arm, give them a prosthetic, and then like mash a hammer onto the prosthetic, and maybe have them think about feeling pain. So we are very good at extending our minds and bodies. And but here I feel like she's maybe hinting at like something a little bit deeper here, where it's more like being a part of this machine, that there might be another consciousness there that she has to merge with, but also identify as differently from. Which, as we've seen, like with the aerial and other things, that gun technology can totally do that.
Well, that's very specific to the aerial.
Yeah, that's very specific to the aerial. I'm not going to say the GU is.
That's why I was saying more about the internals and like, because you might not get that same kind of therapy. You get a different therapy for like replacing your arm than you probably would replacing your entire skull. Because we've seen from these people that when they do the little X-ray shots, that they are Terminators on the inside, basically. So it might be a completely different sensation between feeling like the phantom sensation of your arm still being there over top of your new robotic arm versus these aren't my lungs. This heart beating I can feel, and I could not feel my regular heart beating.
That's like a whole different level right there. But like the Terminator drop like is 100% intentional towards that, like as we'll see like in like a couple pages here. But I think like the thing to like probably put a pin on is like a theory of consciousness synchronization. That probably needs a pin on it. Maybe it will be continued to be expanded.
My problem with Vilda is that she tends to go off on tangents when she's explaining something very simple, and it's just
she started to talk about stuffed animals, so yeah, she went off base here already.
Well, we had to talk about it. She did the last chapter too during that scene where they were just in the middle of a cafe. Supposed to be explaining something very simple, goes off on a 3-page tangent.
Oh yeah. So yeah, she's wordy. She's a nerd.
And here, last page before we get to the flashback scenes, Kiwi expresses a desire to just make the toys fight, and that's he's heard all her sorry, just make the toys fight, and that he's heard all her talk before that we just talked about. She goes on tangents a lot. Vilda seems exasperated and mentioned he's already got a giant robot toy he fights with.
Yeah, they really do treat the GU as a toy.
Well, Kyu does.
Yeah, Kyu does.
Alright, then we enter into our flashback, jumping back to AS-96, which is 5 years before the Vanadis incident, and a year before Aerie is born. Sorry. 5 years? 90? I said 96. A year before Aerie. Yeah, that's right. Sorry, I thought I wrote that in a different way, so it threw me off. 5 years before the Vanadis incident, true. A year before Aerie is born, also still true. Okay. We get to see a flourishing harbor on Earth. My first thought was to question if this could be Quinn Harbor. Yeah. But the fact we only ever get shown one space elevator, and in the current time of the show, they don't even use it to reach the ground anymore. And I believe we currently think the elevator is in California, so not Quinn Harbor, if our theory that Quinn Harbor is in the Middle East.
Right. Question is, where did Vilda go to school at? Will she name drop at some point? We'll find out later.
Based on the layout of the shore and the distance, I'd be willing to guess this is an island of some sort. As well, we see a classroom half filled with students. A professor calls out to our witch, and we learn her last name is Mirren, if we didn't know that before.
Yep, and of course, Vilda immediately will start demonstrating that she is knows more than the professor.
Helen.
Classic move.
That's what I was thinking. Sorry, when I read this originally, I was like, Mirren. Do we know somebody named Mirren? I went to the wiki and everything, looked at all the characters' last names. I was thinking of Helen Mirren, the actress.
Yeah. So Vilda Mirren, full name.
On the next page, we see that a younger Vilda is having a debate with her professor, an authority on permanent linguistics, about what he's teaching in the class. Evidently, he is teaching an outdated whatever, and she thinks it is holding them back via harmful stereotypes that ought to be discarded. My only thought on this is knowing what is coming up has to be Earthian considerations towards human implementation of permit, as per the issues Cardo Naboo casts light on in the prologue of the show.
Yeah, this is where it's like, I'm ready to advance the field, but you're not, so I'm going to go ahead and do my own thing. This is like a very classic, like, smart person in university trope here, really. But also, we also have the evidence of the circle for the eyes. That's just art.
I'm gonna skip to the next page right now, specifically because of what you just said. Vilda gets ejected from the class as the professor takes her words as an insult. So basically, like any college movie where a student and a teacher disagree. As she rushes through the halls, people gossip about her as she passes, essentially that she is a prodigy that skipped a few grades, she's good at focused subjects but seems a bit absent-minded, also that she may have an AI-enhanced brain.
I think that just, like, people maybe making fun of her, I think it's unlikely she has any cybernetics right now.
They could be making fun of her, or she actually has an AI-enhanced brain. You see, this is what I think.
It comes out later. That it is true.
One of the things I was mentioning before when we were reacting to Witch from Mercury, the Mjorn thing of, you have inhuman stamina. She's either saying it, or it's true.
Yeah, it's where we need to see more direct evidence. But of course, she's a prodigy. She's super smart. She's also exactly like me for real. She messes up instant ramen somehow. Yeah, genius on the brink. Yeah, I feel for this. I understand Vilda entirely at this very moment.
I don't. I can mess up instant ramen just fine, but the rest of it, I'm not a genius. So
that's
she's
okay.
got all the perks and none of the.
You've never had the panicking at college experience, so it's all good. It is a vibe.
I have also combined the next 3 pages together.
Yeah, we got some artistic long shots here. We see more of the city. This is very pretty.
Yeah, over the next 3 pages, we see her moving through the futuristic city towards a meeting with Cardo Naboo. Apparently, the doctor read Vilda's thesis and knows about her brother's condition, microfistula syndrome. A fistula is an abnormal connection between 2 body parts, such as an organ or a blood vessel in another structure. The most common fistula in men occurs near the end of the digestive tract, which is my coy way of just keeping this clean, and is apparently quite treatable, also only affecting 0.0123%, which I thought was pretty funny as a number.
Mm-hmm.
That's not made up. It literally 0.123%, 0.0123%, counting.
The tiniest margin of people.
Of men a year. We don't end up seeing much to show where the brother is being treated, so there isn't much to go on. Whatever the micro version of this is, apparently is harder to treat in the future. And
you need nanomachines,
yeah,
right?
Well, gun, whatever they used in gun method, might be the only way, according to Vilda. Cardo believes it might be the case, but questions whether Vilda has the ability or conviction to see this thing through. Energetically, Vilda says that she does have these things. I cannot get past the thought that Cardo, through how her students act in the future, the terms that get created around them, and how she gets depicted across the last 2 releases, vis-a-vis Shadow Cardo, as she appears in these mangas, that she's basically like a scientific cult leader. We also learn that Vilda's brother is the only family that she has left, that her parents passed away for reasons unlisted.
Right. She is not doing great. But this is like, yeah, no, the cult leader angle here for Cardo like fits more and more. We find like someone who's in the perfect position to be influenced into joining the group.
Look,
But at the same time, like
Prospera,
she's in a university setting, she's a scientist. This makes sense. It's all like it's all clear. You can still
Prospera got
read
her
the other
shit from
interpretation.
somewhere, is all I'm
Yeah,
saying. All these witches have a bad reputation for a good reason. And all those good reasons start with one person.
and then it gets worse.
Talking to her unnamed brother, Vilda shares that she's joined the Vanadis Institute and promises to save him. Then we get a couple of representational panels explaining that Gundam medical technology was still in its research stage, and much like the prologue chapter said, would be needed by people venturing into space. Oddly, the symbology here is apples over tomatoes, as the people use the robot-style images that Karu was surrounded by on the front, where we see her die.
Right. Having the machine hand hold the apple is basically a Garden of Eden kind of reference here, right? They're implying that they can reach a perfect world with this here visually, which is like an amazing metaphor.
Literally, when you started to say that, I knew immediately we're going to go Garden Eve, but we somehow still diverged paths. That you're saying,
oh yeah,
the apple represents paradise, utopia that was Eden.
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking it as take a bite of this apple and learn all the secrets that will damn you for eternity.
See, that's a really good interpretation too, because I mean, in the series, everyone who's touched Gundam technology has been hurt and exiled terribly.
Okay, Griff, follow my thought process here. That
we
I
literally have a Gundam called Lilith.
Griff, I called you Gundam for some reason. Griff,
I am the Gundam.
follow this thought process that I immediately just had after I said that all out loud. Okay. Yeah. Gundam technology is used for what? Medical Gundam technology.
Living in space.
Great. Now, what is Earth?
In space.
No, Eden. Earth is Eden. Earth is the Garden of Eden. The Garden of Eden is where mankind comes from. Earth is the Garden of Eden. What is the one thing we need gun technology to do?
To take over the world.
Okay, you're obviously just joking now. We need gun technology to live in space. What happens when you take the bite of the apple in the Garden of Eden?
You gain knowledge of self, I think. I forget what the words are, sorry. You're supposed to gain knowledge.
Right, but I mean after that, what happens?
God comes by and kicks you out.
You get kicked out of the Garden of Eden. Gun technology exists so mankind can live in space, which is literally leaving the Garden of Eden, Earth.
Mm-hmm.
Thus the apple represents the knowledge to leave Earth.
Yeah.
The Garden of Eden.
That's really good. That's perfect. Oh, this is really good art, just like straight up.
It's one thing that represents 100 things. It's like
but to go back into
a picture represents 1,000 words.
I
made that up. That's me. That's me. I made that up. That's me.
It's all you. But to go back to pop culture for a second, like the amount. This is like full cyborg, entire full body robot here. This is a Terminator. Like we've been joking, they've been joking about.
We haven't been joking because remember we saw this in the prologue of the actual show, and also there's an extra added end scene in the show where it shows like a scroll by of all of Cardo Naboo's like wall scenes. Yeah. And there are a number of them where like you're either just getting an X-ray of a person that shows their insides are all Terminator, or just Terminator shots like that. So that's why I was referring to it in the Witch from Mercury reaction that we've seen it.
I need to see somebody in either of these series do like a Ghost in the Shell level of like twisting their arms and rotating like 90 degrees up into the air on a limb that's on somebody's shoulders and just like doing weird ass stuff.
Well, we've seen, I think specifically in like the picture that was in Prospera's room in the prologue, that the insides seem to still be modeled after the restrictions of the human body, so like even the heads and everything have like these like servo muscle things, so that they can still have the strength of movement, but also it restricts them from turning.
Yeah, this set of series is not interested in like the the weirdness of modifying your body. It's interested in talking about like advancing as humankind.
I mean,
It checks out that it would not do something like
none
that.
of that stops you from putting a bomb in your arm, though.
That's also true. That's still true.
All right, and our
on our
next
next page, of
page,
course, they're in the jungle, and I feel like that just secures our Garden of Eden references right here, right?
well, I've written down that Vilda considering this her only hope. 3 years later, AS-99, 2 years before the Vanadis incident, 2 years after Ares is born, Vilda's brother dies. Cardo stays with Vilda in the now empty room to give her the bad news.
Yeah, that's just haunting right there, like that final panel. Like if you've ever had like anything happen to somebody else.
I particularly avoided that in my life.
Yeah, I've not had any loved ones die yet. Still waiting to be completely just devastated by that news.
That's happened. I just don't go there.
There you go.
I've combined the next 2 pages together. The next 2 pages we see a crying Vilda with Cardo, who seems to be doing the bare minimum to try and comfort her for a very short time. In front of a construction site? Because if you see that second panel on the very top,
I guess that's just out the window of the hospital, honestly.
No, because the other panels, the window isn't that big. They've gone outside to stand in front of a building being built to have this conversation.
So we can have like the artistic clouds in the background of every single panel.
Then Cardo springs on her that she wanted to discuss something with her and shows her a medical readout of someone over the age of 100. Because we see the age there, there's 3 dots. The scan on the side seems consistent with the area described for the more common types of fistulas. Cardo goes back into the shadows on page 22, framing her like the cult leader villain I am truly suspecting her to be, as she tries to convince Vilda to stay on board and help others that could use her research/theories for gun technology.
So this definitely like flashes back to, I believe, the beginning of our reading here of Vanadis Hearts, where we had somebody on the table getting like full surgery. That's just Vilda now. That just straight up is Vilda, right?
Well, no, because that wasn't a metaphorical thing. That was literally Vilda performing a surgery on somebody at the Vanadis Institute.
Right, so this happens to her early on because she has the same disease as her brother, realizes she needs to save herself, and then goes on to do it for other people. This is the exact arc she's been on. This is exactly where she wanted to be, but now she cannot possibly escape it.
Yeah, this is where...
Which, again...
This is when Seto Kaiba came by your village one day and bought you. Again, if you look at the third panel, Cardo Nabu is being depicted as nothing but a villain right there.
Right, she is a looming threat given the shadow and perspective, right? She is in control, she is dark and mysterious.
I should say, by the point of us watching the show, and obviously by the point of the manga, because we're here, Cardo Nabu has not been said or depicted to be a villain. So if it's a reveal at the show at some point, by the point of us recording this, we're like 21 episodes in, she's not been shown to be a villain. My theories are just based on the indoctrination that she clearly did to Prospera, and that Prospera passed on to other people, and the fact that 3 times now she's been depicted as a shadow. And when she's talking to people, they made a choice to do that.
Like, I mean, it's the straightforward interpretation here of, like, what we're seeing. There's no other reason to, like, be making these choices artistically, except to indicate something of that nature, of some foreboding nature about her. Which, I mean, this is where we're getting all that info.
Right.
The only other reason I could think to do this is to make her a force of nature. She's not like a cult leader influencing you in. She is the threat of natural medicine here, where your microfistula syndrome is about to kill you. She is the representation of that in this moment.
The only reason I would disagree with that is because the first thing that they gave us was her being shot dead, which is a very human thing to be done to you. So I don't think you would show her as a force of nature and then show her getting gunned down.
Right. Well, I mean, like, in the sense of the story, her taking that place to express the consequences of her actions. Not necessarily to make Cardo herself, the character, more significant.
Alright, in our next page, we see that Vilda chooses to continue because, of course, she did. Because then we know where she ends up. She was on Falk Wagner when the incident happens, for God's sakes.
It's the only path I could take.
It's literally when you were playing a character and we see a flashback and they get into a fight in the flashback. What happens? You fucking know they're alive. This is a flashback.
It's like, did they win? It's like, what do you think?
As we see in the next panel, literally showing us the asteroid and the fighting, we also see the outside of Ox Earth HQ equally under assault with similar explosions and fire, as to opposed to the shots we saw of the inside before with people being gunned down.
I think Vilda helps exemplify the tragedy of all this. Of like, if we just like kind of like put the cult stuff aside for a second, Vilda's still a well-meaning person, interested in new technology, using it to help others, trying to save people around her, and that's the future she's going for, where it doesn't have to happen anymore, and then it all blows up.
Well, I mean, that's what cult leaders go for, right? Well-meaning people that are too smart without enough knowledge not to. It's the whole Jurassic Park thing, right? I can't remember what the quote is.
Yeah.
You spent so much time asking if you could, you never asked if you should.
Which I guess like kind of wraps around to how would things have gone if the Gundam program would have just kept going as is without anything else happening, if like they didn't all explode. That's a question I don't think we totally know.
It never would have is the problem, because Ox Earth had to fund it for it to be able to do anything. Apparently, is what we're getting at, and they wouldn't have exploded if it wasn't for Ox Earth either, so they would never have gotten off the ground, which I guess assumes then that we wouldn't be as... But we went to space anyway, so I guess we just have a lot more cancer deaths.
Yep. But of course, on the next panel, we are now back on Earth, present day. We got Kiyu just being cute here. And of course, just like a nice long shot landscape. Like, this is just nice, beautiful country scenery.
Also, I guess worth saying that we're back in the present. That's something we probably should have mentioned. We're back in the present.
I thought I said that.
I don't remember. I just said you said two-shot panel, like spread.
Yeah.
Yeah, showing a long empty road the duo is traveling across again. It almost seems like farmland, because if you look down there,
it is 100%.
Yeah, you don't do that grid pattern by accident, and if it's abandoned territory, it wouldn't stay in a grid pattern.
I mean, if you live in like areas like mine where you're not like city center or something, it's like, every bit of farmland delineates property just by like putting a whole bunch of rows of trees between them. That's it.
We also get another shot of the truck and of Kiyu shouting for Vilda's attention. Next page, eventually Vilda uses a sleeping... Evidently, Vilda uses a sleeping mask as she rises awake to find Kiyu has been messing around with an art pad. Essentially following the earlier conversation, it seemed like she had been tuning out before the whole... again, I can't remember the specifics of what she said early on in the chapter, about using art as a way of also being therapy.
Right.
Evidently, she was hanging off of the GU somewhere that required a safety to be engaged when she took the picture that she drew over, as Vilda chastises her for safety being required before an accident and not after.
Right. Kiyu continues to be a kid. Their drawing is adorable, but right now I like feel for Dr. Vilda even more. Just seeing them like waking up, being in this groggy state, it's like, I know exactly how this is. Having someone literally shouting at you to wake up, and you're just like, ugh.
Well, I mean, the first thought there is, this isn't even my kid.
It's not even my kid. They're just harassing me to wake up from my nap on the road trip.
Alright, next page. Kiyu basically says the thing I keep referring to as the nightmare ending for him. That GU and them are one and the same. Namely, my vampire theory that Kiyu is never going to grow up, and that GU basically will end up being as the extension of their body to all the things they can't do in their actual physical form, becoming the source of their regret and pain, basically. Kiyu then pesters Vilda about where they are stopping next, and if it will be fun.
But how could it be terrible and tragic, Theta? Look, Q's so happy. He has roses all around him, and it's like smiles. It's so... They're just expressing the bond of friendship he has with the GU. That's all.
Because we start these things with happy, fun characters that we come to enjoy, and then we put them through misery to make sure that we truly understand what the human experience is all about.
I also didn't see this little bit of text here before, but if like you zoom in over Kiyu's bubble, They say they're also running out of food, which is what we're looking at here with the empty boxes.
Yeah, I think they said something about that with the last stop they made at the roleplay place.
Yeah, so I think this is like it very much is setting up like the classic road trip band kind of thing. It's like, yeah, we're a bunch of penniless people and we have to like keep getting more stuff.
I also think, to my previous point about the pain and sadness, I think there's a quote, was it Sunset Express? That if there is a sound most pleasing to God's ear, it must be the din of human suffering. All right, next page. Vilda says the next stop is going to be work as usual, and Kyu says that even work is fun when he's with Vilda.
Yeah, there's just such a little heartwarming bit of relationship here, right? Q is doing their absolute best, like I think, to enforce positivity on Vilda, right?
I mean, it's not natural, but I've
It's not
done
natural to be positive. But yeah, no, that's the
that.
thing.
Yeah, what did I just say about the din of human suffering? Anyway,
Yeah.
I've combined the next two pages again. Vilda looks wistful for a moment before launching into an anecdote from an old professor, 72 years old apparently, according to the math on screen, that told her after a storytelling session for kids, essentially saying that the experiences you have in your youth shape you more than the ones you have when you are older. Vilda wraps it up by saying that so long as Kyu is having fun and fulfilled, then she's happy too.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Yeah, and I can see the metaphor here. It's just Vilda kind of like in her long-handed way, kind of expressing that she's just happy to be seeing like all these positive experiences out of Kyu, I
I
think.
mean, then again, Vilda's also a witch, so as long as I'm not killing another kid, I guess it's okay.
And then Kyu immediately is like, well, what does that mean?
Yeah. Moving on to the next page. Alarmingly, I think on this page, Hugh expresses knowledge that they don't have much longer to live, which leaves me wondering if that's due to them being chased by whatever it is that they're running from, or in a physical sense that whatever they've done to themselves or had done to them has whittled down their lifespan in the way we see enhanced persons dealing with in the show. Kyu innocently says that they want to grow up fast as a result.
Yeah, this is the answer to your question. I think is both. The answer is both. They're being hunted down, and their time is short, or the time for Kyu to grow up at least is short here.
I mean, it's not
Uh,
often that you get a child character saying, "Yeah, I don't have much longer to live,"
we also
apropos of
have
nothing.
Yeah. We also have the best face right here, where Kyu in our third panel is just like so tiny in the window and has like this smug little expression. It is positively adorable. And then of course we just have Haru
I think you're looking
stuck
at a
on the front.
different. Yeah, you're looking at a different page.
Yeah, I think maybe you skipped ahead already
Yeah,
here.
no, I said I combined the other two pages together. So when I moved on to the next page, so you said third panel, and I'm looking at what I can only imagine being when you shit your pants when you see this face in the middle of a dark room.
No, one right before that.
Yeah, because
There we go.
again, if you're looking at page, I guess 33 on your account, panel 3, imagine that face, like, just coming out of, like, the darkness, maybe a knife in one hand. That's literally where you
I'm
shit
gonna
your
make you
pants.
happy. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, no, next page, last page. We end off on Vilda's internal monologue as she smiles back at Kyu's energetic face. She says that she wants to protect Kyu's smile, whether for her ego, calling back to the fight with the professor earlier in the chapter, narratively, or atonement for something we have yet to see she's done, but all
Hmm.
witches so far have done some fucked up shit, so that she will lift both of their curses. Which again might
Right.
also amount to why Kyu was saying they don't have long to live anyway. Maybe they're cursed in that respect.
Yeah, this just kind of cements the very idea that the things that she's done, the surgery she's done to herself and to Kiyu, need to be reversed in some way or otherwise modified. Their journey here is to find a place to make that happen. Which is definitely not in California, apparently.
Well, no, they're already in Nevada by this point, according to the security system.
I thought they were supposed to be going north.
Well, I mean, they're running away. It's entirely possible that they could make them curves. I did not see a bunch of places named boroughs. See, the problem is with the security systems tracking thing, it had like a bunch of different areas named borough. And there is an expanse of the Mojave where it's just a bunch of borough stuff.
Mhm.
So it's entirely possible to call a bunch. And again, they didn't call it borough like boroughs of a town or a city. They called it borough, just flat out borough.
Yeah.
And I didn't see
Uh,
any of that northern in California from where we thought they were.
right. But that does wrap this up here. This is a very short chapter. Like to me, it feels like the last 5 to 10 minutes of like an episode or something. Like this is the episode ender for like our
Well, you have
pilots.
to compare it against what we read before. The prologue was filled with a bunch of
Mhm.
prologue stuff. Ironically,
Yeah.
I mean, it was a prologue for a chapter, but it was filled with a bunch of stuff from the prologue from the show. So,
Mhm.
and then what the last chapter was how many?
Good question. I think it might have been like 50. It has been a minute.
Yeah, but yeah, even that had some flashbacks in it.
Yeah. But yeah, this is more on pace, I think. Like and also they're just trying to get to like the next point, I think. They're setting up for the next chapter where they can say like, all right, we've gone ahead, we've set up like established that we've escaped fully, that we're low on supplies. Here we go. Chapter 3, new adventure.
Well,
It makes sense in like an episodic
at the
context.
very least, we're setting up that these characters are fun and having fun with one another.
Hmm.
They're drawing us in to accept them so that bad stuff can happen to them. And then they're also dropping like dark hints like Karunobu was a shadow cult leader and Kyu
Hmm.
knows they're going to die. Children aren't supposed to know they're going to die.
It is very funny like comparing this to Witch from Mercury, where there are like a lot of like happy faces there and like comedic moments, but I wouldn't call Witch from Mercury a comedy.
Well, from the very beginning when we were releasing Witch from Mercury, except for maybe the prologue because I didn't have it at the time, I've
Yeah.
used the opening of Suletta arriving at school, literally getting off the tram and having the bright, open, wide face
Yeah.
staring at everything that lays ahead of her because it was a happy opening moment. And that's,
Yeah. And it's all downhill from there.
well, I mean, I've used it up until like the very last episode. And I think from now on, I'm not going to use it anymore because we're no longer there.
Yeah.
Even when Suletta was like, pushing everything away, it was still happy opening.
I think maybe like the comparison here might be in like the way like their suffering is endured, right? Because in Witch from Mercury, they kind of like have a status quo and then they keep shaking it up, and shaking up that status quo causes their trauma, their drama, and all of that, right? Here, they're at least Vilda is aware that they are currently suffering,
Kyu
and
just said
they're
it.
using the humor to make it better.
Well, Kyu just said it. Kyu is fully aware that they don't have long to live. Also, I think pointedly a bigger difference would be
Yeah.
which from Mercury is they can't run from their problems, and
Mhm.
Vanadis Heart they are actively running from their problem.
They have to keep running or they die. Yeah, they
Yeah,
have to keep going.
I mean they're literally so far up on the running spectrum that they will run out of food but keep running.
Yeah, so like it's definitely a completely different vibe. It's the dark humor of just like, yeah, our situation's terrible, but let's just have some fun anyway. Here, let's just cook some hot dogs like over the burning corpses over there. It's fine.
I actually feel like Vanadis Heart has gone double down on everything, right? They're choosing
Hmm.
to go double down on the comedy, but at the same time, where you can read into it, the darkness is also darker. At
Yeah.
no point was like Suletta like, yeah, we're all gonna die. She was never accepting of her own mortality. Whereas
Hmm.
in this one, we've not only had a character accepting of their mortality, they're a small child.
A small child is like, yeah, no, I'm gonna die. Let's have some fun.
We don't have any of those longer years left out of us, right?
And and I gotta say that this is my vibe here. Like, if you've seen me laughing at random tragedy, like this is why. Like you take the suffering and you just turn it around into a little bit of a joke. You laugh at it and you keep going.
I think it was said best by a great poet of our time that you take the good, you take the bad, you take it all, and there you have the facts of life. The facts of life.
Gosh. Do you have anything else to add out of that, or should we leave that as our outro?
I think that's our wrap up.
Then, in that case, everybody, this has been Stone-Faced Reactions for today. I'm Griffin, that's Theta, and we will catch you next time. See you around.
Please don't go. It's great having you here. Don't do it to me. I beg you. No.